Okay, all right, you guys, we are going to cover section 5-6 today. Yes, we are jumping out of order, but 5-6 actually goes with all the graphing, so that's why we moved it. So it is graphing linear inequalities. Okay, so we're still graphing, working with inequalities. The difference is before we had done equations. Remember the difference between equations and inequalities? An equation has an equal sign, and inequalities are the less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Remember those four? Okay? All right. The first part of your assignment, they are going to give you an inequality. Okay, so I'm going to give you y is greater than negative 2x plus 4. Okay, and then I want you to determine if the following are solutions. And this is very similar to when we did equations. It is not multiple choice. So don't think it's just A, just B, just C. It could be all three of them. It could be one of them. It could be two of them. So the first order pair is the order pair 2, 3. The next one is negative 1, 11. And the third one is the order pair 0, 4. Okay? So we need to determine if these are solutions to this inequality. So most of you probably know what to do. You're going to plug the x in for x, the y in for y, and see if it works. So go ahead and do that. So I'm going to plug 3 in for y, 2 in for x, and I'm going to simplify because the question is the left side greater than the right side? So when I simplify, negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, plus 4. Simplified, that is 0. So the question is 3 greater than 0? And your answer is yes. So yes, A is a solution. Okay. Now we need to do the same thing with B. Plug negative 1 in for x, 11 in for y. See what you get. And then plug 0 in for x, 4 in for y. See what you get. Go ahead and do those. Press pause on your video and see if we get the same answer. Okay, so for part B, when you plug in negative 1 for x and 11 for y, and you simplify, you should have got, the question is 11 greater than 6? And our answer is yes. So B is also solution. When you plugged in C, 0 for x, 4 for y, you end up with 4 greater than 4. Is 4 greater than 4? And the answer is no. So the solutions here are A and B, okay? Next, we're gonna move into graphing. We are going to graph using slope-intercept form because we have two ways to graph a line, and that was using intercepts and slope-intercept form. So we're going to continue to use y equals mx plus b. Remember, you will follow the steps, which is graph B first, on the y-axis, and then you will apply m from b, remembering when it's a fraction, if it's positive we go up, negative we go down, the bottom number we always go to the right. Then we have rules as far as we can't just draw any line. When it is greater than or less than, we will use a dotted line. When it's greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, we will use a solid line, okay? So that's important to us, and I would actually even box it off so that you can refer to easily when you're doing your homework. The other part is shading. When it's less than or equal to, we will shade below. When it's greater greater than or equal to, we will shade above, okay? Again, this is something I would box and star, and we will use those guidelines. So always use slope-intercept form, and then we'll decide if it's a solid or dotted line, and then whether we shade above or below, okay? So now we're ready for examples. Okay, one thing to remember before we start graphing, you don't need to write this down because we did multiple times in chapter 5, is that for inequalities, remember if we multiply or divide by a negative, you must switch the inequality. So that's still going to apply here with graphing inequalities, and you'll see where that's going to come up. But don't forget that part, is that if we multiply or divide by a negative, you must switch the inequality. Okay, so we are ready to graph. The first one we're going to graph, number 1, is going to be y is less than or equal to 2x minus 3. Okay, this is simple because it's already in slope-intercept form, so I don't need to solve. But we're still going to name the m, which is 2, and the b here is negative 3. It's just a helpful guideline and something that will help you graph a little bit easier. Okay, make yourself a graph. And as I said in notes before, we're still going to use the process. We're going to start with negative 3. We're going to start with the b. Start with negative 3 on the y-axis. And then we're going to apply slope, which is 2. To make it a fraction is 2 over 1. So I start at negative 3, go up 2 to the right 1. I can carry that slope on. You don't have to, but I can. So now we need to decide if this should be a solid line or a dotted line. Since it is less than or equal to, it will be a solid line. And then shading. It is less than, so we need to shade below. And below is right here. And you just need to shade lightly underneath. So that is completely graphed, start to finish. Okay, so let's move on to number 2. Number 2 is going to be 4x plus y is less than 2. Okay, this one is different from number 1 in the fact that it's not solved for y. So we're going to have to do that extra step to solve for y. So to solve for y, we need to move this whole 4x, and to move the whole thing, we need to subtract 4x. So now we have y is less than a negative 4x plus 2. It is now in slope-intercept form, so we can name our m, we can name our b, and we are ready to graph. So make yourself a graph. And we start again. We start with b on the y-axis. And we apply slope, so we go down 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right 1. Because slope is negative, so we go down. So that's why I went down 4 to the right 1. I can go and do it again if I want. Again, you don't have to. And then we need to decide if it is a solid line or a dotted line. Since it is just less than, it is a dotted line. So you need to draw a dotted line rather than a solid line. So a dotted line, and then it is less than, so we shade below. Now, if you are struggling with above or below, take your line, turn it horizontally. We can clearly see this is below. So when we turn our line back, this is still below. And so I shade here. All right, so now that we have 2 examples, let's talk about the reason for the shading and the reason for dotted or solid, okay? The shaded area, and this is a good test question, so I'm just letting you know. The shaded area means that any ordered pair in this shaded region will make this inequality true. So same thing here. Any ordered pair, I can pick any ordered pair in the shaded region, and then it'll make that inequality true. Now, solid versus dotted. If it is a solid line, again, this is a great test question. If it's a solid line, any point that falls on the line will make this inequality true. For a dotted line, any point that falls on the line does not make the inequality true. So for example, over here, if I choose the order pair 2, 1, will that make, without plugging it in, looking at the graph, will that order pair make this inequality true? And the answer is yes. Okay, where over here, if I would choose the order pair 1, -2, without plugging it in, if I just look at the graph, 1, -2, it falls on the dotted line. So the answer is no. That would not make the inequality true. So that's the reasoning for shaded area, and that's the reason for a solid line versus a dotted line, okay? Please let me know if you have any questions about that, okay? Otherwise, let's try number 3. Number 3 is 2y minus 4x is greater than 6, okay? So we have to solve. I want you guys to solve for y. I want you to name your m and your b and try and graph. So right now, press pause on your video and we will see if we get the same answer. Okay, so to solve, you should have added 4x. And we write it as 2y is greater than, we write the x term first because we want it to be in slope-intercept form, so we write the x term first. And then we divide by 2. Since we're dividing by a positive, we do not switch the inequality. And we reduce. 4 over 2 reduces to 2, and 6 over 3 reduces to, 6 over 2 reduces to 3. The m is 2, the b is 3. So to graph, we start with the b on the y-axis. So I start at 3. And I go up to the right 1. And then I have to decide, is it a solid or dotted line? And since it is greater than, it is a dotted line. So I make a dotted line. And it is greater than, so I shade above. So again, if you're struggling, here's my horizontal line. This is above. Turn it back so this is still above. So my shaded area goes there. All right. Number 4. X plus 4y is greater than or equal to 8. Again, I want you to pause the video. I want you to try this one, and I'll do it, and we see if we get the same answer. All right, so for this one, you should have subtracted x, so then 4y is greater or equal to -x plus 8. Again, we put the x term first, the number at the end last. Divide by 4. Now, remember, there is a 1 here, and if you need to write it, by all means do so. -1/4 does not reduce, so we leave it as -1/4 x. And 8 divided by 4 reduces to 2. Again, I only divided by a positive 4, so I do not switch the inequality. Name your m and your b correctly. So I graph b first on the y-axis, so at 2. And then it's a -1/4, so I go down 1 to the right 4. It is greater than or equal to, so I draw a solid line. And it is greater than, so we shade above. And that is it. All right, so for number 5, it is 6x minus 2y is greater than or equal to 0. Again, pause this video and I will see if we end up with the same answer. Okay, so for this one, you should have subtracted 6x. So then this is a -2y. Don't forget this goes with the 2y. So it's a -2y is greater than or equal to -6x. You do not and should not write that plus 0. Then we divide by -2. Dividing by negative flips our inequality. Negative 6 over negative 2 reduces to 3x. So our m is 3, our b is 0. So to graph, we start at 0. For slope, it's 3 over 1, so I go up 3 to the right 1. It is less than or equal to, so I make a solid line. And less than, we shade below. That's it. Hopefully that is what you got as well. So for number 6, what if I give you 4x minus y plus 2 is greater than 0? So again, you need to solve for y. So this one's a little different, so I'll do it with you. I would do one thing at a time. So I'm going to move my x term first. So it's a positive 4x, so I'm going to subtract 4x. So this is a negative y plus 2 is greater than negative 4x. We now need to move the 2, so I subtract 2. So negative y is greater than negative 4x minus 2. Divide, because remember this is a negative 1, so I'm going to divide by negative 1. And dividing by that negative switches the inequality. Negative 4 divided by negative 1 is a positive 4x. Negative 2 divided by negative 1 is a positive 2. So that's how that one would work. Again, name our m and our b, and we are ready to graph. Start with the b on the y-axis, which is at 2. And then I apply slope, so I go up 1, 2, 3, 4 to the right 1. It is less than, so it should be a dotted line. And less than, we shade below. All right, number 7. This one's a little bit different as well. So I'm going to let you copy it down. Number 7 is 2x plus 3 is less than or equal to 7. Hopefully many of you are saying there's no y, and that's correct. So remember, when there was only an x or only a y, we solve for that variable. And so here we subtract 3. So 2x is less than or equal to 4. And then to solve, we divide by 2. X is less than or equal to 2. There is no m, there is no b, so we don't need to name them. You should be already thinking in your head, it's an x only. So if we follow our acronym that I had given you earlier, we know that it's x, so it should be a vertical line. So I go to where x is equal to 2. It is solid because it's equal to, so it's a solid vertical line. Now, a vertical line doesn't have above or below, so this is our only exception. When it is x, you will shade the way the inequality is pointing. It is pointing to our left, so we will shade to the left. And this left and right is only for a vertical line. Everything else is above and below. All right, number 8. I'm going to let you guys try this one. 5y minus 3 is greater than 17. So pause the video, try this one, and we'll see if we get the same answer. Okay, hopefully this is what yours looks like. You added 3, divided by 5. Since we're dividing by positive, we do not switch the inequality. It's only a y, so again, if we follow our acronym, I know it's going to be horizontal. It is only greater than, so it's a dotted line, and we shade above. Okay? All right, last one, and then we will be done with notes. They will give you problems that are already graphed. There you go, better view. All right, so they're going to ask you to write the inequality of this line that is graphed, okay? So again, the process, we need to name our m, our b, and then we need to figure out our inequality, okay? So I would, again, go in the order in which we graph. We graph B first, so let's figure out where it crosses the y-axis, which is right here. So you want to find out where it crosses perfectly, which is here. That is at 1, 2, 3, 4, so B is -4. And then your graphs that they give you for homework will be a little easier to see because you can see where it crosses perfectly. But follow the line along until it crosses perfectly. Start with the point furthest to the left, and you're going to count. So I count up 1, 2, 3, 4, and to the right 2. So 4 over 2, but we all know we always reduce our fractions. So slope is actually 2. This is a dotted line, and it's shaded above. So the inequality that matches it is greater than. Now I have all my information. My final answer is y is greater than 2x minus 4. Okay? That is all for notes. Thank you.